everybody you have 50 different stories.
Yeah. So probably the story that I feel compelled to share right now is about my kids, right? So I have 8 kids, and my oldest is 25 and my youngest is 9 right now. And yeah, so when my son that is currently right around age 14, when he was 2, so 12 years ago, he had a really physical issue that, traditionally what they wanted to do was a very invasive procedure. And my mama insides told me not to do it.
Yes.
And so I was trying to figure out a different way. And that's actually one of the ways I learned about energy healing. And so I've been producing energy healing conferences now for the past 10 years. But at that time, I was completely ignorant to a lot of the natural things that I do on a regular basis now, about frequency and energy. I didn't know about any of that stuff. And so I kind of like had to really trust that. And I first went to an iridologist who then led me to an energy healer. Good thing she didn't tell me she was an energy healer because I was in such a box. I wouldn't have allowed myself to look there.
Yeah.
I don't know if that makes any sense.
It absolutely makes sense because I know there's so many people out there when I say I love energy work, I love frequency work, they're just looking at me like,
Yeah.
you're into that woo stuff. And I'm like, that woo stuff was here long before.
Oh, yes.
Western medicine. And I think each has its place. But I've been amazed at learning energy work. So it's just amazing. My hands get hot every time I start talking about it. It's
Really?
like, oh my goodness. Yes.
Well, did you know that you can actually measure the voltage coming off of your hands? Yeah, it's really cool. So people who are like well versed in energy healing and also channeling the energy out, a lot of people call that Reiki or universal life force energy. As that comes out, it can expand and it can grow. So anyway, but get me started on the geeky stuff, right? I love that stuff.
Well, that's okay. Talk about that.
But anyway, so my son, I trusted, and I went to this energy healer. And like I said, I didn't know the term, right? But I went to her, and it took care of this very physical issue in one appointment. And when that happened, I realized how valuable it was, first of all. It was non-invasive. It was very affordable. It was $40 for the appointment. And like I would have paid thousands of dollars had I done the traditional route they were encouraging me to do. So that's really like part of my story is finding that out with my son. And because I wouldn't have ever really started doing the energy healing conferences. And I mean, that's what I've been doing full time now for 10 years.
Amazing.
And we've done over 100 events. As you know, you were at the very first conference.
I was totally at the first one.
But I think we should maybe share a little bit more about how we know each other.
Okay.
Or is that okay?
I'm fine with that. Yes.
I just wanted to make sure. I'm like, do you care?
I don't care.
Okay. So when I was 15, we lived right around the corner from each other, like not very far away. It was just right there.
Yep.
And I used to babysit for you.
Yes, she did. She babysat for me.
And at the time started to kind of, not really like myself. And I kind of went down a self-destructive path. Actually, I should back that up. I don't know if I stopped liking myself right about that time. I think it was like a learned behavior from my childhood, and I was like, now when you're kind of like, here's your childhood and here's adulthood, and then you intermingle, and that's called adolescence, right? Sometimes that's kind of a difficult time period learning to grow up. And that's when I was really struggling with kind of finding my place in the world and loving myself. And I started to dabble and do things that were very destructive. And one of them was drugs. So how I ran into you at your work at the time was you worked at a drug and behavior residential facility, and I ended up going there, and I lived there for 89 days. And so I remember when we saw each other, you didn't look at me with shame in your eyes. You looked at me like, what are you doing here? Like shock. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And anyway, I wanted to say thank you because you've never once made me feel shame for that, ever. It's like you have had this innate ability to see people through all these years and also be able to understand them and have compassion. And so I want to say thank you because you kind of helped shape me in that way because that could have been very different had that been that lower vibration
Right.
that I was accustomed to at the time,
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
thank you. And I have been clean this next month in May.
Mhm.
I will celebrate 26 years being clean from meth. And I'm very proud of that.
I'm very proud of you.
Thanks.
From the time that I met you, I could see such greatness in you.
Thank
And
you.
I recognize that. And I loved your energy back then, even though it might have been super difficult. Since I've met you, you've never acted like anybody else or anything else. You have been you
Thank
through
you.
it all. And that's what I've appreciated.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I tried on this, thing that was other than me, and it was like the worst 3 seconds of my life. I decided I can never be something other than just me
Yeah.
ever again.
Yeah.
So I appreciate that. Thank you. I think the reason why I even wanted to bring that up is because maybe somebody who's viewing this or listening to this, however they're, consuming this podcast,
Right.
they might know somebody who's kind of struggling or dealing with some of the hard things in life, maybe the self-destructive behaviors, because I was involved in definitely more than just drugs at that time. But yeah, sometimes you just got to keep believing in people, because there were a couple people who really had my back during that time. And I mean, that wasn't easy to live away from my family. And it was rough.
I know it was rough.
Yeah.
But you know what? You made it. You made it through, and here you are.
Thanks.
I
Well,
know it's not just like from A to Z, and it was a straight line and all good,
yeah.
that's just
Yeah.
not how life is.
Yeah. Life
Right.
is, yeah, it's like a roller coaster. You're
Yeah.
up and down. And the thing is, though, that it's helped me to be able to see people in a different light and to be able to have compassion and understanding, because you really don't know what people have endured
Mhm.
in their childhood or
Yeah.
what they're going through on the inside. Because you could have two people that come from the exact same house and they see things differently and it affects them differently. And even though they came from the same circumstances,
Mhm. So, Tammy, thank you so much for just being vulnerable, being able to share your story. And I'm so proud to be a tiny part of
it
that.
was a big part,
You know?
actually.
So, what inspires you
There is
or
a
who?
there is a beautiful thing to be witnessed. It's a very powerful healing to be able to have somebody to witness you, and that's what one of the things that you do for people. And so I just appreciate that so much. So I actually went and grabbed a picture of my grandma. I showed you this.
This is Grandma
So
Judy.
yeah, this is Grandma Jerry. I'm
So I'm
always
not sure
talking
if y'all
about
can
her.
see that a
Yeah.
little bit, but yeah, that's you with her, right?
Yeah, so
How old were you?
I am about 10 years old in this picture right here, and she was in her 50s, and I remember when I was 8 years old, we went to Lagoon. So my grandpa had passed away, and we were both living in Provo at the time, and we'd gone to Lagoon, and she went on the Colossus with me.
No way.
Yeah, that goes upside down, And I just remember thinking that my grandma was, so brave and so courageous. She wasn't like the other grandmas. I know that I just had the most special grandma ever. But anyway, this picture has been on the piano that I inherited actually from her.
Wow.
And I just am so grateful for her. She's one of the people that inspire me. So to answer your question, I feel like her encouragement from the time that I was born until the time that she graduated this life on 7/7 of '07. From that time, she genuinely, all of that encouragement and inspiration has just continued to bless me. And I was showing you this article that I wrote about her. This is in a publication that's found in the Idaho area. And this is an article that I wrote about her, and it included really just how much of a healer and an inspiration that she was, not just because of the life that she lived,
Yeah.
but because of how she constantly tried to reach out to other people and make sure that they knew, right, that she saw them. And that's just powerful thing to be witnessed,
Yeah.
and to be seen. And her magical words, as she called them, was, if it is to be, it is up to me. And I still remember her kind of going around the house, you know, and doing that. And she had these little songs that she would sing, about positivity and
Mhm.
bluebird on your shoulder. I mean, she constantly had all these little songs to help get her, up to the next vibration,
Yeah.
to lift her out
Mhm.
of any sort of darkness. So anyway, I just really admire and respect her so much. She also had 8 children and she was a nurse for 40 years and she was just a huge inspiration to me.
Aw.
And even when I was like in like the lowest of my lows,
Mhm.
like lowest of lows,
Yeah.
like not wanting to be here,
Mhm.
she never treated me like she saw me differently, It was like no one else could see what she saw in me.
Mhm.
And so I just appreciate her so much. And she's taught me so much about the value of your thoughts and also just like about respecting yourself and with your thoughts, like how you talk to yourself, that inner self, communication. I remember when I was about 14, her literally putting me in front of a mirror and saying, look in your eyeballs and say, I love you. And I couldn't do it.
Mhm.
I couldn't do it back then. Now I can do it. It's like, even though it was so difficult for me back then, I still remembered that lesson.
Mhm.
She didn't fail. She didn't. She taught me some things and then I had to take it at my own pace and learn. But I'm thinking just the other day, I had to literally sit down with myself, have a heart to heart with myself, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And say, that is not okay to talk like that. So I actually went and got some post-it notes that are like hearts.
Uh-huh.
And I literally wrote myself some little love notes and I put them inside the fridge and up in the cupboards and by the sink, like reminding myself to drink water and make good
Yeah.
choices and including my thoughts to myself because, hey, I'm human. I still forget and I don't have it all figured out. And I always tell people, like, hey, I'm a student of this work.
Yeah.
Like, I am constantly having to apply these things because it can be really difficult at different times, depending on what's going on in your life. You know what I mean? It's beautiful.
And there was a time in my life where I had to have such control
Hmm.
over even time and get all bent out of shape for this and that. And now I'm kind of learning that.
Yeah.
And I see that with you because you have so many things with this energy healing conference. There's so many components to that. We sometimes forget the back office part.
Oh my goodness. It's a lot of moving parts and pieces. I tell you what.
Yeah. How do you get through all of that?
I have a powerful team that knows exactly what to do and they are very loyal and they stay, like they're just really supportive.
Yeah.
Like I couldn't do this all on my own. I just couldn't. The very first conference that we ever did, I didn't have any employees. I was pregnant with my 8th baby. I was actually homeschooling my 7 kids. And my daughters learned how to run a business and how, what work ethic looks like and what all of these moving parts and pieces, because they helped me put the first one on,
Yeah.
and they've had some positive things come back to them, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Mhm.
So, but it's been positive, and they're like, that was really hard work for those first 3 months. And then they learned and we formulated a system. So we have these systems in place that are really helpful.
Mhm.
And then also I have just an amazing team.
You do have an amazing team. And so when is the next conference?
So we have one on Mother's Day weekend in Idaho Falls, and
Mhm.
that is always a packed event. It's always a sold out event. It's just awesome. But my dad lives in Idaho Falls. My grandmas are buried nearby. Like all my great grandmas are buried nearby. Like all of the, well, wait, not my great great. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Most of them.
We're all about ancestors and
I
genealogy.
Yeah, and I'm all about radical honesty too. So as soon as that came out, I was like, that's not 100% true.
Mhm.
So I had to fix that. Anyway, but yes, I have a ton of cousins that are from that area. I actually graduated high school from the area as well. So I just know a lot of people. And so it's a really packed event. Fast forward to June,
Yeah.
the end of June is like humongous. It's like all of the other ones combined from the rest of the year. It's huge. It's over 3,000 participants,
Mhm.
over 150 vendors. Like it's enormous. And we have some really amazing keynote speakers, people I've been trying to get to come for years that are usually not available.
Yeah.
But they're like, we're coming. It's our big 10 years celebration. So they're gonna be coming and participating. I'm very excited.
And I know that when you were teaching your vision class, you were talking about your grandma Jerry, and I just love that. If it's to be, it's up to me. you know? And so you see the legacy that your grandma left.
Oh, yeah.
What
It's
what's
powerful.
Tammy's legacy?
Well, luckily, in the process of life, I've learned that you can reinvent yourself and
Mhm.
change your story at any time. So if something is happening in your life and you are not liking it,
Mhm.
you can change it. You
Yes.
don't have to stay on the same trajectory or the same path. If you learn new information,
Mhm.
you give yourself permission and you allow yourself to make a different choice. And I am so grateful for that. I think that that really pertains to any area of your life,
Mhm.
whether it's addictions or it's, your body image or how you see yourself, the kind of foods that you're eating, I mean, the way that your home is. Like, I honestly, I wouldn't have let you in my house 10 years ago
Yeah.
because I was a hoarder. I'm a recovering hoarder, which I usually don't talk about very
Mhm.
often, but I had this little tiny trail
Yeah.
from the door to my bed. And we had stuff just everywhere. And I've learned a lot about energy and flow in
Mhm.
the past 10 years. And so I have professionals that have come in and helped me
Yeah.
with feng shui and energy flow and then also learning to release and let go. But this is one of the things like with my story, so
Yeah.
you can change your story. I mean, could you imagine 8 kids? That's a lot, and we homeschooled too.
Yeah.
I'm not making excuses, I'm just saying, like, it's been a part of my story is to, like, say, "Okay, do I want to continue down this, or do I wanna change it?" And you can do that for any part of your life.
Yeah. Yeah.
Relationships or, financial structure or income or outcome or whatever.
Yes.
Like, anything, you can change it, and I'm really grateful for witnessing that with people that I admire so much. It's been something that I've learned. And so I think that that's probably one of the things that stands out the most to me right now. It's really poignant in my mind is I feel really grateful to know that like, if you have a pen, it's like a magic pen. You
Yeah.
can be the author and write your own story.
Yeah.
It's like a co-creator with the universe. I recently met with a medicine woman and she taught me that.
Mhm.
That same thing. It was like, wow, that just barely came up last week and now here it is again.
Yeah. Yeah. So I appreciate you sharing that legacy.
Thank you.
Yeah. Is there anything else that you want our listeners and our viewers to know, either about you or the Energy Healing Conference or anything
Yeah.
about energy?
Well, I feel really grateful that I learned when I was 17, because one of the things that actually helped me to get clean was when I moved from Ogden, Utah. I jumped on a Greyhound bus with $38 in my pocket and 2 suitcases, and I went to Port Authority in New York.
Wow.
And I lived there for about 6 months, and I got myself clean
Mhm.
while I lived there. And one of the things that I think really stands out to me is that my grandmother, Grandma Jerry,
Mhm.
she sent me a book called Feelings Buried Alive Never Die
Yes.
and by Carol S. Truman. But I actually got to call and talk to her and thank her for her book because it helped me to learn that the power of our thoughts impact our energetic field.
Mhm.
And I did learn that when I was 17, 18 years old. I remember it very clearly. I was sitting in a food court at a mall in New York City. So as I was sitting there, I still remember reading this thing that talked about how your thoughts can impact your life. And I remember shutting the book and just sitting there with that thought. And I just kind of chewed on that thought.
Yeah.
And I just asked myself, is that true?
Mhm.
Because up until that point, I had always believed that I was just a victim of my circumstance,
Whoa.
and I had
Yeah.
never really had anyone teach me this concept or this idea about our thoughts.
Mhm.
And so I know we've already kind of talked a little bit about the mirror and self-talk, but I wanted to bring it back to full circle here to if you don't like the thoughts that you're thinking, you can change them.
Mhm.
You've got tools. There's people out there that have got tools that can help you that have been able to overcome certain things. So I think that knowing that it actually can affect your energy,
Mhm.
what's coming and going from you, right? Transmuting from your energy is really powerful. And also just continue to learn as you're on this journey, right? Like just anybody who's like maybe learned one modality, just keep learning. There's so many fun things and incredible things. You never know when something you learn is going to be able to help the next person
Yeah.
out there. And there's so many things that are science based or who are in the process of catching up with science. Because like back in the 1960s, Dr. Effie Chow, she came from China, and I had a conversation with her when acupuncture needles were outlawed. She literally was arrested, and they seized all of her acupuncture needles, and
Oh my
she
goodness.
was put in jail. This was in the 1960s. Actually, she said it was 1969.
Mhm.
So anyway, now fast forward to all these years later,
Mhm.
it's proven that acupuncture works.
Yes.
And even in many insurance companies now even cover or offer
Right.
acupuncture as, a proven modality for care.
Mhm.
And so like just because something isn't proven right now doesn't mean that there's not validity to it. So I think keeping an open mind can also be really helpful.
I thank you for sharing that. Now, if any of our listeners or viewers want to learn more about the Energy Healing Conference, where should they go?
Just energyhealingconference.com is our website. I would say maybe even on Facebook, which is just Energy Healing Conference. And on Instagram, it's Energy Healing CONF. So just conf for short.
Okay.
Of course, you're going to be at the big one in June, so they
Mhm.
can get free tickets from you.
Oh, cool.
And we'll have to put a link with this broadcast so they can kind of tune into that. But yeah,
Okay.
I think that's wonderful.
And I so appreciate you giving us that opportunity to do both.
Absolutely.
So,
Yeah, one of the reasons why I actually started doing the conference was because at the time our financial kind of where we were, the circumstances was really rough.
mhm.
And I really do not believe that people should be limited to this information based off of their socioeconomic.
Right.
And so many of our tickets are given freely
Mhm.
on scholarships and with, prepaid sponsored tickets
Mhm.
from people like you and our vendors, because that's how we pay for the production costs. Usually to go to a conference like this, it's upward of right around $900 to $1,000,
Yeah.
to be able to have this kind of information and live experience where you can go and watch demonstrations and get services and care right there
Mhm.
on the spot. So that's a big part of my mission, why I do the conferences, because I really don't believe that anybody should be turned away from this information because it's empowering, it's life-changing. Like I know I've experienced it myself. So
Yes. And you're such a conduit for health and wellness. I really believe that there's been countless people that have been impacted by your work to stay here on earth.
that means a lot to me. My husband recounted a story to me where this older woman came up to him and she put something in his hand, and then she just kind of hurried away, and he opened it up and he realized it was a suicide note,
Oh,
and he panicked and chased after her. This was in Ogden,
well,
and he caught up with her, and he was like, "Ma'am, you can't leave. Like, we need to talk." Like, he was just like kind of
yeah.
holding her and like, "Let's talk." Not holding her hostage or
No.
anything like that, but
Yeah.
just like caring in a caring way.
Yeah.
And she said, "Oh, no, no. I don't need that anymore." She said, "I've been carrying that around for years and I won't need that anymore." And she said, "I just wanted you to know I have hope again." And our company is called Hope Haven Events.
Mhm.
And it was super simple how that story came to be. I turned to my daughter, who was 13 at the time, and I said, "We should give this thing a name. Like, we should call it something. What do you think we should call it?" And she just blurted it out, Hope Haven Events. I was like, that's it.
That's it. When you know, you know.
And I feel like it's been synonymous, the vibration has matched with
Yeah.
that. So I've been really grateful.
Tammy, thank you so
I
much.
love you.
Oh my goodness. I just love you. Just gives me an opportunity to share with everybody, that there are networks of people who care, networks of people who are supportive and have alternative healing. There's so many things. So please check.
Energyhealingconference.com.
Yes. And so we want to thank you, listener and viewer, for tuning in to a little bit higher frequency today with Tammy. Love it. Thank you again.